We're finally here. All the tech issues aside, hopefully you fast forward to the 3-minute mark. This is the number one Christian belief that's keeping you from your goals and what God has been waiting on from you. This is something that God has been waiting on from you. What is it? I'm on the edge of my seat. Please post any comments or questions in the below, and we will get to them at the end of this, since I can't see them when I'm looking at my Google Slides. This is the number one Christian belief that is holding so many people back from achieving their goals that won't only bring them more joy, but also serves other people. That this is the belief that your ambition gets in God's way. Burp, burp, burp. Was it worth the wait to know? It was. So why is this? Why are we weird around ambition as Christians? I was recently at a program done by a very, very fancy elite seminary, and I loved the program, had a blast doing it. And while we were there, this book was shared on, this book that I mentioned in last Saturday's video, A Beautiful Constraint. And it talks about turning your your butt when you have this ambition, but to accomplish something, but they're going to change that. But I want to write a book, but the kids are at home because of quarantine, turning that but into an and, so you're no longer stuck. And so in this book, the word that we were studying, the words that are used are ambition and a constraint. When you have ambition, there's also this constraint pushing back on that ambition. And the Christian seminary professor that was leading this discussion, she literally said, because we're a Christian group, we're going to change this word ambition to hope. What? Really? We are? Why? Why is this? Why are we afraid to own our ambition as Christians? Why are we not owning our ambition? Why are we afraid to love it? And why are we afraid to even speak of it? Literally, this is a group of about 25 Christians who serve in religious nonprofits, religious institutions, entrepreneurs, and we couldn't bring ourselves to even use the word ambition. So we changed it to hope. So obviously, this is a belief, whether it's in our subconscious or not, that this could be the root of some of our issues that's holding us back from our goals. Could this root of our fear of ambition be the doctrine of original sin? So I went to this great BBC article and I borrowed their definition. I put the link here for you to read on, because as I explored in an amazing read by Daniel Schroyer, and in today's video, there's going to be content overload. I'm going to be giving you book ideas to read, podcast episodes. So as we started this group a month ago, I let you know straight up, there's going to be so much content in this group that'll help you as a spiritually attuned go-getter. And this video is no different. Tons of content. So this doctrine of original sin, some scholars even say it's not even biblical. And Daniel Schroyer is one of those. And she unpacks it in this great book, Original Blessing, Putting Sin in Its Rightful Place. And this doctrine of original sin did not even originate until the 4th century with Augustine. And a lot of us think we believe it, but then when we start reading about it and studying it with great books like this, we see there's a difference between original sin being innate in our nature, which is how it's clearly defined, that this means that we're born with a built-in urge to do bad things, and we have this built-in urge to disobey God at all times. What? Once we start researching this doctrine, we find that there's a difference between sin being innate in our nature and sin being innate in the world. Whoa, that is very, very different. And don't worry, she's in no way saying that there's no such thing as sin. We just got to put it in its rightful place. But I think that since this original sin doctrine is in so many of our denominations' statements of faith or books of discipline, that it could really be at our root of not owning or loving our ambition. I have been there. Actually, recently was cleaning out my closet and I found an old journal of mine. If you journal, please comment below. I'm a fellow journaler like you. And in this old journal page, I found that I had written, I must have been studying Matthew 15, 11, 20, this Old Testament deal about a person can only be clean after a cleansing ceremony. I think this is the scripture that explores, it's some are asking Jesus about clean food rituals, and he's pointing out that what matters more is your heart. And so, but then what really got me is what I journaled down here under these really fun hearts that I felt a need to decorate with. I put crap is the best metaphor word to describe my motor insides. Never what we do, it's always my heart. It's what is my heart. Crap. So obviously, not a lot of confidence going on there. And there is this even though I born and raised United Methodist, there, which really, if you go back and check the Book of Disciplines on our views of original sin, really not that much different than more conservative denominations, but that's neither here nor there. There's little hints of this worm theology or this depraved wretch theology, which is a blog that I actually sometimes see on Instagram, depravedwretch.com or something like that. But this, what I am at my insides is crap. What I am at my innermost core is constantly wanting to disobey God, is wanting to do bad, do badly, do bad things. Crap is my heart. So I have been there, afraid of my ambition, and maybe it's because of the doctrine of original sin. Possibly worth exploring within ourselves. Regardless of where this belief that our ambition gets in God's way comes from, too many Christians are not reaching their full potential because they believe their ambition gets in God's way. Do you believe that your ambition gets in God's way? I had this belief before. I used to have this belief. And these are the 5 ways that this holds us back from our goals. We're going to go through these now. The 5 ways this belief keeps us from our goals. Again, we're in the Cultivating Sanctuary Facebook group. And please put your comments, questions, and coffee in the comment thread. Oh, wait, just kidding. Put your comments and questions in the comment thread. So 5 ways this belief keeps us from our goals. Before we do this, I am going to check over and make sure we are still live. We are still live. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Awesome. Let me see 1 second. Okay, we're back. Okay, the 5 ways this belief keeps us from our goals. This belief that our ambition gets in God's way. Number 1, this belief gets in our way because we don't trust ourselves and we give way too much power to other Christian voices. We sometimes think that all the Christian voices in our life are synonymous to God's voice, which is not always the case. And the number 1 place I see this is in ministerial leaders right before they reach spiritual and professional burnout. And what I mean by this is they spent so many years living out of this poverty mindset, not just around getting money and how some are so underpaid and underappreciated, but also from this place of, I had a clergy friend that wanted a sabbatical recently to maintain his spiritual health, and he was turned down, and he was told that if he took a sabbatical, he'd lose his position as a pastor at this church. And so this idea that in that moment, he was trying to listen and tune into himself and to the Spirit, what the Holy Spirit was uniquely saying to him in that moment, which was take a break. Or with some ministerial leaders or anyone who serves in the nonprofit world, really, I'm not making enough to provide for my family. I am living out a poverty mindset. And they don't trust themselves enough to ask for more, to ask for what they need to be successful, to live, to provide for their family, to not be operating out of survival mode all the time. And so when we believe that our ambition gets in God's way, it's hard for us to trust ourselves enough to disagree with the other Christian voices in our lives. Number 2, when we believe that our ambition gets in God's way, we play too small and we hinder our team from success. Then we call it Christ-like humility whenever we play too small. I don't know about you, but my husband and I are currently hooked on the docuseries The Last Dance about Michael Jordan's final season. Last year's, I'm not a sports person, as you can tell, his last season with the Bulls. And it tells this beautiful story of his relationship with there's so many themes, but what I'm going to talk about right now is his relationship with Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman, Kirk something, can't think of his last name, and how they called each other out when the other one was playing small. They held each other accountable to reaching their best selves and to helping their team succeed. And it's been amazing to watch. I was, of course, 8 or 9 when all this was going on, and so I only knew Michael Jordan from Space Jams. It's good to know his career went somewhere after Space Jams. And I've just been blown away that they would not let each other play small. And it talked a lot about how Michael Jordan has he was just not human, is what so many people described him as on the court, not human. And also an insane drive and work ethic that could compare to no one. And then Scottie Pippen was just naturally athletic. And I thought that was very interesting that they differentiated between the two. And a lot of the times there have been shown scenes where Michael Jordan is not letting Scottie Pippen play small. He or Coach Phil Jackson is making Pippen better. Or there were times that obviously that Dennis Rodman didn't show up to practice. And there's a hilarious scene where Michael Jordan goes to Vegas and wakes him up in a hotel room and gets him to practice. Like, they didn't let each other play small. But for some reason, in Christian circles, we flip and play small, and we blame it and we call it Christian humility. And all it does is it hurts our team. And if you're a solopreneur who doesn't really have a team, it's just you're hurting your customers because you're not expanding to your full potential to serve them. You're not expanding to your full potential to benefit them. You're not expanding to your full potential that would lead to more joy, more peace, more creativity, because you're playing small and you're calling it Christian humility. It reminds me, speaking of basketball, Coach Carter was about basketball, right? Well, in that movie, he quotes Marianne Williamson, and former presidential candidate, who has this amazing quote that sometimes Coach Carter gets credit for, but it was really Marianne Williamson, who talks about our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're more powerful beyond measure. Then I skip a few lines, that your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And we let our own light shine. We unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. I'm going to read that line again because I think a lot of recovering holy rollers need to flipping hear this. As we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Amazing. Now, I shared at the beginning of this video, that's going to be content overload today. Here's an amazing book right here. It's also on the screen in front of you. The Divine Dance by Richard Rohr with Mike Morrell. And the cover of this book is a famous mosaic. And many believe that right down where the letter N is of dance, there used to be a mirror. And what that represented, as this book is about the Trinity, is that whoever was looking at the mosaic needed to own their power as a co-creator with God, needed to own their power as a character in the Trinity, in the Trinitarian relationship, that we play a role as thinking Christians with free will and creativity, made in the image of God. We play a role, and we serve no one when we play small. And another amazing book worth checking out, but I know many commented that they love it, but if you haven't, check it out. Number 3, this is the third reason why the belief that our ambition gets in God's way hinders us from our goals. Number 3 is when things get hard, we bail too easily, or as I've experienced and witnessed, we settle for a much lower standard in ministry or in religious related work. One of my husband's favorite lines is from the movie and the book Where the Red Fern Grows. And it's this idea, the line is, sometimes we have to pray with our feet. Sometimes we have to pray with our feet. And I also love the line that I'm going to butcher, and I don't know who said it, but it wasn't me. Someone smarter than me. The line is, work like it only relies on you. Pray like it only relies on God, like it only revolves around God. One of those. So this idea that as co-creators with God, we can own our grit and we can pray with our feet. Because of that, because we're working with God and for God, help lead others closer to God, it's okay to push ourselves to a higher standard. It's okay. And of course, we live in a life of contrast and paradoxes. If you struggle with being a perfectionist, it's also okay to some days not work as hard. As we talked about on a recent interview in this group with David Hayward, that he says probably once a month on a scheduled day that he is supposed to wake up and paint or draw or write. If he doesn't feel like it once a month, he honors his feelings and he doesn't do it. But that's once a month. Let that be known, people. Once a month. So remembering that when things get hard, if we believe our ambition is getting in God's way, it can keep us from harnessing our grit, and it could also keep us from raising the bar on our work, because we think, this must be what it's meant to be. This is what God wanted. It's like, no, you have a role to play. You are a co-creator. Pray with your feet. Number 4, when we believe that our ambition gets in God's way, we don't love ourselves, co-creators with God, enough to pause and celebrate. And this celebrating sustains us through harder times as spiritually attuned go-getters, as anyone, really. Celebrating sustains us. And a lot of Christians and recovering holy rollers seem to really struggle with this idea of pausing to celebrate. We think that it points to a lack of Christian humility if we're going to pause and pat ourselves on the back as co-creators with God, or applaud ourselves or throw a party, when really we need to pause. It's a necessity to pause and to celebrate and to reflect and give thanks to God and give thanks to our teammates, give thanks to our customers, our clients, to show thanks and to be proud of ourselves, I can't tell you how many times, and this triggering moment is probably one of the reasons that birthed my latest book, I Am My Own Sanctuary, How a Recovering Holy Roller Found Healing and Power. I cannot tell you how many Christians I have run into or I've worked with that I compliment them and compliment their talents, compliment their work ethic, because I'm a words of affirmation person. That's what I do. I show love through words, obviously. And I've lost track of how many times in these moments that I compliment them, they get annoyed. They almost get angry. Actually, I've had some get angry at me that I would even the notion that I would think that they play a role in this. And they get mad that I am suggesting that they played a role, and they say in an angry voice, I had nothing to do with this. It was all God. Isn't that ridiculous? And what I've also noticed with a lot of people who say that kind of thing is that they just flat out don't love themselves at all. They have an extremely low self-esteem. They lean on the side of lazy at times, and then they get mad when I compliment them as a co-creator. And it's heartbreaking and it's angering to me that others out there, recovering holy rollers, well, probably not recovering, holy rollers, these Christian holy rollers, that they think to be good Christians is not to love themselves. It's like we're in the 14th century all over again and they're flogging themselves. It's like, no, love yourself as a co-creator with God. Receive this compliment that your talent is beautiful. Your work ethic is inspiring. Own it. Instead of getting annoyed at me for calling it out in you and thinking that I'm some heretic that's pointing at you. And by me pointing at you, I'm taking attention away from God, when really it's the divine within you that's bringing all this beauty and all this productivity into the world. Obviously, I get very triggered about this. So to recap, when we believe this lie, this Christian belief that our ambition gets in God's way, what usually happens is we don't flip and love ourselves. We don't love ourselves. We lack confidence. I am gonna tear up. I'm so bothered by this because I see it in so many Christians. We don't love ourselves as co-creators with God enough, and because that we don't enjoy pausing to celebrate. We don't receive compliments well. There was probably a lot of things. Question number 4, so bear with me. I wanted to keep it at 5, but we don't love ourselves well, and it is in pausing to love ourselves. It's to celebrate ourselves as co-creators with God. It is in pausing to honor our role and as co-creators with God, and to receive compliments that are about our talent, about our problem-solving skills, about our work ethic. It is in pausing to celebrate those things, whether through compliments or streamers, that those things sustain us. They sustain us as spiritually attuned go-getters. And number 5, the last reason that believing that our ambition gets in God's way holds us back from our goals. The 5th reason for that is that we live in fear of getting too far ahead of God. I just can't, as some of you know, I served on a church staff for 15 years, and a little before that served on camps, and in between those, sometime in the summer, I was a chaplain at summer camp. And so I have been a part of ministry in the camping world, the local church and campus, and I have been a part of so many prayer circles that are praying that we don't get too far ahead of God. And I myself have used to pray several, oh, forgive me, God, I got too far ahead of you. So when we believe that our ambition is ungodly, when we believe that our ambition is rooted in original sin and is opposite of God, when we believe that, we live in fear of getting too far ahead of God, and fear kills our creativity. I capitalized kills because I meant it. Fear kills just felt stronger than squashes. Fear kills our creativity. And how do we know this? We know this because of neuroscience. We know that when we are extremely stressed, that fear shoots up stress hormones through our brain, cortisol, adrenaline, and this disables our cognitive abilities to create, to remember, to live out of our personality, to think logically. There was a typo there, but I'm going to ignore it. And we have this beautiful imagery of the brain brought to us by neuroscientist Dan Siegel and psychotherapist Tina Payne Bryson. And they have, I think, 4 books out now about it. Coffee break. Okay, so what they present with us in the Whole Brain Child books, which if you've been following a lot of my work, I quote Tina Payne Bryson all the time because she is this neuroscience, brain science goddess, and she's an amazing speaker, and I love her so much. Totally have a woman crush on her, and Ruby Wax, both of them. Okay, so in this, Dan Siegel presents to us that the hand is a perfect model of the brain. You have calm choices. And so, and you can see in this word on the screen, this brain, the prefrontal cortex. So that's where thinking logically, the monkey brain or the lizard brain. I don't know why they just don't call it what it is. The reptilian brain and the limbic brain. And the downstairs brain is where big feelings live. So kind of in the middle is this almond-shaped cluster of neurons called the amygdala. And the amygdala is responsible for fight, flight, or freeze that happens when we get scared or are stressed. And in our day and age, when we're under chronic stress. And what happens is the amygdala shoots up cortisol and adrenaline, like a broken fire hydrant. And then we literally flip our lid, as the picture shows. Woo! And all those stress hormones shooting up, cortisol and adrenaline, it shuts down our cognitive functions to be present, to focus, to be creative, to empathize. All that goes up. We can't be creative when we're living out of fear. And so many religious Christian circles, we're going to focus on Christianity today because that's where I come from. So many, they have instilled in us this fear that we might get too far ahead of God. And this fear, living out of this psychological state, kills our creativity. Where does this come from? I know for me, this idea, this fear that, oh, good, I could get too far ahead of God, that came from, for me, the Bible passage in Genesis 11 around the Tower of Babel. And the way that I always was taught that scripture and even read about it in seminary was this idea that they were getting too far ahead of God. They were egotistical and getting too far ahead of God. But then as I began to question and research and really started to own my ambition as godly and good, and that it could help me to serve others closer to God, it could bring me more joy to flip and love my ambition and own it, I began doing some research. And I'm going to suggest you check out this amazing podcast episode. He's a new guy. His name's Rob Bell. I think he's got a future. And in this episode 194 and 195, I was in a hurry and didn't add the second part because I was trying to get ready to be with you guys this morning. And in these episodes, the underbelly of the internet, he blows our minds with this idea that what if the Tower of Babel passage really had more to do with the role and the power that we give advancing technology in our life. This talks about the type of brick and stone they were using. What if this Bible passage has more to do with the role and the power that we give advancing technologies in our life and less to do with our ambition? What if? And so if that has triggered you and you are feeling that you disagree with me, I would highly suggest you check out this episode on the Robcast, episode 194, 195. It's called The Underbelly of the Internet. And just sit with it and grapple with it and ask yourself, are you like me? Do Bible verses like this give you a limiting belief that is keeping you from your goals? It's keeping you from expanding into the person God made you to be. It's limiting you from serving your customers or clients well. It's limiting you from serving those you were called to serve. So in closing, I would like to say that God is a fan of your ambition as a co-creator. God is a fan of your ambition as a co-creator. Own it, love your ambition, and trust yourself to use it well. Trust yourself as a co-creator that if ever your ambition is coming from a place that is going to hinder your relationship with self, your relationship with neighbor, and your relationship with God, trust yourself that you will know. You'll know. And I don't know how you're wired. You'll either know with your analytical mind, you'll either know with your gut reaction, you'll either know through your emotions. You'll know. Trust yourself that if ever you're using your ambition in a way that's going to hinder your relationship with self, God, and neighbor, you'll know it and you'll shift and you'll move differently. Trust yourself. Trust yourself. And that is a nice accidental bookend to our whole time together today, because that was our first reason today why believing your ambition gets in God's way, holds you back, is that it keeps us from trusting ourselves. And then we give other Christian voices way too much power in our lives. Okay, I'm gonna hide this. Alrighty, so thank you so much for your time today. I would encourage you to come back on Tuesday night. We go live in this group every Sunday morning at 10 Central Standard Time and every Tuesday night at 7 Central Standard Time. This Tuesday, ministry consultant, blogger, professional online course creator over mystic theology and safety policies for churches, Reverend Beth Perry from the New York area is going to be joining us this Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Bring your questions. I cannot wait to be with you all then. Thank you for your time today. And feel free to hit me up for comments through the comments, questions, quandaries. I love being with you in these live videos.